Well, the next thing to try to work on is a systematic method of really overcoming this anxiety you have in the cafeteria.
Okay.
So let's see if we can do something like breaking this down into some steps that you might begin to take to get a handle on the situation, sort of a step-by-step method. So if we, let's see, maybe I can do this secretarial work this time and write this thing down,
okay.
and then I can share it with you just to get us going here. So if we were going to take this whole situation with being in the cafeteria and being afraid to go down there and then avoiding it, and we try to break that down into some pieces that would be maybe a little less anxiety-provoking to get going with it. And there may be some pieces that might be more anxiety-provoking as we would go on down the path of getting control of this. Let's see what they might be.
Okay.
So, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to give me a number ranking for each of these things that you would do. And the numbers that we use are 0 to 100.
All right.
100 would be the most anxiety you could ever imagine feeling. I mean, that is right up at the top of the scale.
Okay.
And a 0 is at the bottom. There's no anxiety. And 50 is right in the middle.
Okay.
10 just a little bit. And this exercise actually works the best if we can figure out some activities that are a whole way across the spectrum, from really low, hardly cause any anxiety, to pretty high, and then to really at the top of the scale.
I understand.
Okay, so where would you like to start? Top, bottom, in the middle? What do you think?
Well, I know what the worst would be.
Okay,
so
let's get that down. What's the worst?
the worst, or the 100%, would be to go to lunch by myself at 12 o'clock when it's the most crowded,
You all right?
and to eat on glass dishes instead of paper.
Do they have glass dishes in your cafeteria?
Yes.
Oh, they do. So what, you pick
I
the paper
usually
ones?
get things
oh,
to go.
That's interesting. Okay. All right, so lunch by self with glass dishes. And how long would you stay there in the cafeteria?
Half an hour.
Half an hour? Okay. So that's 100.
That would be 100%.
Okay. Now how about we go down this list a little bit and find some things that aren't quite as anxiety-provoking. What would they be?
To go to lunch with a coworker, maybe when it's not so crowded.
All right. Okay, and where would that be on the scale? 0 to 100.
Maybe about 75.
75, okay. When is the not so crowded? Can you be more specific?
It gets less crowded after 1 p.m., so I usually try and wait to go to lunch later in the afternoon.
So this would be between 1 and
1 and 2, or 1 and 1:30.
Okay. Put that as a 75. Okay, now can we go down toward the bottom of the scale, or are there some things you can think about that have to do with being around the cafeteria or that would be pretty low?
Sure.
What would that be?
Getting a to-go lunch is pretty easy. Even if it's crowded, I feel like I can get in and out quickly.
How long does it take you to get in and out?
5 or 10 minutes to get a to-go lunch.
Okay,
So I just
that's
have to
only
walk
5
through
to
the
10
crowd.
minute exposure.
Yes.
And you just walk through the line. Okay.
With a box or a paper bag.
Does it make any difference what time of day that would be? How about in the 12 to 1 range?
That would be
what's
worse than
Okay, what's the ranking on that?
maybe a 25 or 30.
And how about if it would be 1 to 1:30 later on?
Then it would go down
To what?
to maybe 15.
Okay, well, that's interesting, isn't it? So at the time of day, it does make a difference.
It does, because of how many people are down there.
Go from 1 to 1:30, and that's about a 15. Okay, that's good. Now, is there anything that's even lower than that?
In the morning sometimes,
Yeah.
like at 8 o'clock,
Yeah.
when there's hardly anybody down there, I can go get a to-go lunch. They already have little box lunches.
Oh, so you get it in advance. Oh, I see. Okay, and what would that rating be?
Probably 5 to 10, because
That's
it's
the
not very
easiest time to go in
crowded.
there.
And
So it's the crowds and the time of the day, and how long you stay,
How-
and the kind of dishes you're using,
yes,
and so forth.
yes.
Are there any other things that influence this that we should be aware of?
Crowd, time, dropping things. Those are the big issues, I think.
I guess there's also the thing about whether you're with somebody you know.
That's true. Yeah, if I'm alone, I feel a little more panicky.
Okay. What if you would go in the morning at 8 a.m. with one of your buddies?
That'd be
Pick up a take-to-go lunch. That's
piece of cake.
piece of cake. Is that a 0?
Yeah,
Okay, we got a 0. Great.
yeah.
All right, now, just to go to the whole other end of the scale, is there anything that would be actually over the top? I mean, this would be even, I said 100 was the top, but some people that I work with say, oh, there's 150 rating. I think
Well, you told me to drop my tray on purpose.
Oh,
That would be over the top.
All right, okay.
If I dropped glass dishes on purpose at lunchtime,
Okay, and what rating would that be?
125.
125, okay. All right. Well, let's just think if we can pick a few more things that are in the middle, and then maybe we'll fill in more of this for homework and figure out
Okay.
a plan of attack for actually getting moving with this. So can you think of something that's here in the middle in the 50, 60, or 40 range?
Maybe I could eat by myself, but on paper dishes.
Uh-huh. And what would that be?
Maybe a 40.
And what time of day is that?
If it was after the crowd, it wouldn't be as high.
So 1 to 130, what are we dealing with here?
About a 40%.
40%, okay. Okay, is there anything that's in maybe 35% range? A little bit less anxiety provoking than that? Think one more thing to put in there?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I bet there's some other things that we haven't thought of. We don't have the time to go
Yeah,
into...
like getting things to go. or-
Right, to all the details. But maybe you could think about that for homework and try to
Okay.
fill this in. Generally, if there are 10 or 12 things at least, and they're across a whole range, it helps you. All right. Now let's just talk about the basic principles here.
Okay.
What we find in people that have panic and anxiety and avoidance like you do is that for a long time they've had a really bad fear of a certain situation, like going to the cafeteria by yourself, and they've avoided it. And so every time they stay away from it, it just builds up the fear in their minds. Can you see that?
Yes, because I even dread like walking to it.
Yeah.
I start getting anxious
Yeah.
on the way.
We found this like people that are fearful of heights. They avoid heights, so then every time they think of going to heights, it just makes it worse. So there are really only two ways that we can break this pattern. One is you have to work on the fearful thoughts, which we've already been doing.
Right.
We did some work earlier on that fear that you would drop the tray.
Right.
And the other thing is to actually break the pattern of avoiding it. And that takes a little bit of oomph from you to try to tackle this. And this system of laying things out like this in a systematic way is often the secret to success. So what we want to do here is we want to start at some of the lower items and pick a couple, and I want you to try your best to try to expose yourself to that anxiety and tolerate that anxiety to the point where you can do it with comfort.
Okay.
And then you're going to gradually build your way up through this hierarchy.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay. So as we look at this scale, we had here, for example, in the morning, this is we already can do something that doesn't cause any anxiety. That's going with your buddies to pick up the
Like to go
lunch
get a
in advance.
donut
Yeah.
at breakfast isn't bad.
But we have things that you're already doing that cause, I guess, a low amount of anxiety, like to pick up a lunch to go from 1 to 1:30. So is there anything in this hierarchy that would challenge you a little bit, that if you could push yourself some to increase your sense of confidence about this, this would be a good thing for you to do? Could you pick one or two of those that you would work on this week?
Sure.
So what would that be?
Well, getting my lunch to go
Right.
during lunchtime is
Okay.
pretty anxiety provoking.
That's a 25 to 30.
Uh-huh.
All right. So could you commit to doing that several times this week?
Yes.
How many times?
Well, I work Monday through Friday, so can I do it twice?
It's up to you.
I'll try to do it twice.
Okay. 2 times this week.
Okay.
Okay. Here's one that says eat by self on paper dishes. That's eating by yourself in the cafeteria from 1 to 1:30. What do you think about that one? That's a 40.
Yeah.
Can you do that once this week?
I will try
At
to do
least?
it once.
Okay. And if you can do those 3 things plus fill in the gaps here, then I think that'll be a really excellent start.
Okay.
All right? Now, what do you think about doing this?
I think it's going to make me more anxious, but I will try to remember my breathing, and
Good.
I'll do a worksheet afterwards so that I kind of can journal about how I
Yeah,
felt
great idea.
and what I thought.
Yeah, yeah. Now, it very well may make you more anxious, but I want to tell you that that is not bad. In fact, that's good.
Okay.
That might seem strange that I want you to
It
be more
does.
anxious, doesn't it? The reason I want you to be more anxious is if you can confront the anxiety and learn to tolerate the anxiety, know what it is, and not run away from it, that's really going to move you way ahead in reaching your goals.
And I'm not going to faint or die.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. Well, now I know what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah.